just they do the adjustments, so to say.
Are you ready, Maestro? Can't find it's like on my computer, so I'll just explain.
Not Sunita today.
We'll do it tomorrow.
Okay.
This song is a whole mountain song.
Oh, wow, great.
You'll be wearing the scarf down on here? You'll be wearing the scarf?
No, I'll sit on top of it.
Well, we found actually the audio from the scarf last time.
Okay.
Let me just double check.
So testing 1, 2. Okay.
Testing. Testing.
Test 1, 2. Are you ready? Okay, here's a test of your memory skills. Ready? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto suchedoye olahadi samya samputoshe.
Namo sadanto suchedoye bhalahari samya sanputoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma,
Supreme and wondrous Dharma,
subtle and profound,
subtle and profound,
rarely is encountered,
rarely is encountered,
even in billions of eons.
even in billions of eons.
But now we've come to see and hold it
See and hold it
within our sight and hearing.
in our sight and hearing,
We bow to fathom the thus come ones,
about to fathom the Daskam one,
true and actual meaning.
true and actual meaning.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. Glad you're here. My name is Heng Shi, and we are here at the Gold Coast Dharma Realm, looking at the sources of our school, of our tradition, of our particular association, and our connection to a good and wise advisor, our teacher, Master Hsuan Hua, and what he did in America. Do you want to start me out? Do you have questions?
Of course.
Okay.
If you have questions,
Please
you
go
can
ahead.
start. And so, welcome everyone. Our new episodes, a new series. We continue our exploration of Master Hua's early days in here, not here, here in the West, you can say, in America, and how he established new way places and bring the Dharma to the West. So we, starting for today, will base on, you see on the screens, illustrated book, the pictures, which capture the stages of the planting and nourishing the roots of the Dharma in the new soil. And we want to start is in the picture 1968 is the first Dharma session, Shurangama session in the West. At the time, we didn't have Facebook, any social medias to pass on the information, but somehow we see the hall is full of the Westerners who not just came for one day, they stayed for 90 days, study all together the Shurangama Sutra. Dharma said, what is the story behind that? How do you
So, yeah, Ken, Master Hua arrived in 62 after first coming to Australia in 61. So he didn't, conditions weren't right in Australia for him to put down roots, so he came back to Hong Kong. Then one family was essential for bringing Master Hua to America, and it was the Liu family. I'm sorry, not the Liu family, it was the Tan, Mr. Tan, who was a importer, exporter, businessman in Hong Kong. This is the father of Madalena and Stella Tan, who many of us know. Their dad, at an advanced age, in his 70s, had never taken refuge with a Buddhist monk. He was interested in Dharma, but he didn't meet anybody in Hong Kong who he felt was the right teacher for him. And then one day he came rushing home and told his wife excitedly, I've met a teacher, you're all going to take refuge with him. And he's very young, and he's from Manchuria, and he just arrived in Hong Kong. So they were very interested, and sure enough, it was Master Hsuan Hua. And the entire family took refuge with Master Hua, who was quite young. Madalena was 11 at the time that she took refuge with Master Hua. So bit by bit, the daughters grew up. Sherpa was there for 10 years. And Stella first, and then Madalena, made their way to America to study. They went to university. And they explored, because Master Hua had heard as a young man, he had deep affinities with people overseas, numerous people, scholars, workers, men, women, elders, youth, all sorts of people, and people and non-people, people and beyond people. But his affinities were not in China, certainly not in Manchuria when he heard these predictions. So he decided that based on his vows to bring the Dharma to the West, he better come to the West, to bring the Dharma to the world, and ultimately back to Asia. So in 1962, he arrived, and this, Jim Weisher mentioned the Shurangama summer study session, Shurangama Sutra study and meditation session. That was actually delivered in Buddhist lecture hall, Fojiao Jiangtang, in Chinatown, San Francisco, which was number 6 Buddhist lecture hall. From the time Sherpa first arrived in 62, he moved into and then exited from 5 other Buddhist lecture halls. And the reason being that Madalena and Stella had written the letters of sponsorship, had arranged for the plane fare with the help of others, and had organized, had beat the drum in Chinatown and told people, there is a wonderful Dharma teacher coming, you don't want to miss him. So they were the PR, they were the ones who let people know about Master Hsuan Hua. And so when he arrived, there was just a handful of people, and they were mostly going to work. The girls were students. So he had to wait for affinities to develop. That's what I think most people don't appreciate, that there was a period called the Mu Zhongsang, the monk in the grave period, when Master Hua had to simply wait for, as he said, for the conditions to ripen. He made a trip to the East Coast, to New York, met David Rounds, met Ron Epstein, who, because Master Hua, Buddhist Lecture Hall number 5 was a boarding house in what is now Japantown in San Francisco. Back then it was the outer stretches of the Fillmore district. And Master Hua became owner of a house that he rented out apartments to students, one of whom was Ron Epstein. And he encouraged Ron to study Chinese. He saw that this person had deep affinities. Well, Ron was in San Francisco on leave from University of Washington in Seattle. Ron came back, and there was his Buddhist friends up in Seattle had said to Master Hua, please come up, we would like to do some meditation. Master Hua wrote a letter back, and we have a copy of the letter. He said, I can't do that, I can't leave San Francisco, I have vows to stay and protect this place, why don't you come here? So that summer, 1968, they did. A number of young people, we have the picture of the young people gathered around, almost all of whom are Caucasian. They're almost all Western. A few Chinese from Chinatown who stayed with Shifu. But that 1968 summer session was when finally the word got out that there was a real Chinese Buddhist monk who was willing to teach Buddhism and meditation to people. So Shifu started to, and this was Waverly Place, the former Tianhou Miao, a Taoist temple, on the fourth floor of a walk-up in one of the oldest parts of San Francisco, Chinatown, on Waverly Street. And it was tiny. It was really tiny. The men had to sleep on the roof in boxes that they built. And Master Hua urged everybody. He really wanted to make Buddhas and Bodhisattvas right away. So he said, okay, you're going to be studying the Sutra of the Chan School. You have to learn to meditate. Cross your legs. Sure, it hurts. Cross your legs. How about half lotus? Full lotus. Cross your leg. So, and sleep sitting up, and eat one meal a day, and don't touch money. So Shifu right away started people out on the standards of cultivation at Buddhist Lecture Hall were very stiff, very steep. Many monks in China, in Taiwan, and Hong Kong couldn't keep those practices, but Shifu said, we're going to go for it. I want people to, I came to America, he said, to build Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, not out of clay, not out of wood, not out of metal. I want to build Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, and patriarchs out of human flesh and blood. I want to make real living Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So let's get at it, right? So now the amazing thing, though, in Buddhist Lecture Hall number 3 and 4, which was a basement. Buddhist Lecture Hall number 2 was it was one of the few places available in Hong Kong, in Chinatown, San Francisco. It was a basement store space. Why was it available? The last occupant was a maker and seller of coffins. And so nobody wanted, there has to be ghosts there. It must be, So that one didn't last very long. And then at one point, Madalena's father's business office was Buddhist Lecture Hall number 3. And then there was a place on Sutter Street. And all this time, Shifu had already begun to lecture on sutras, to explain texts. Often there would be nobody there to translate, or it would be Jimmy Wong, who would later become Dak Fai Wong, a famous martial arts teacher of the whole world, who has been here to the Gold Coast, by the way. Huang Dehui is the Choi Li Fut Martial Arts School, White Lotus, White Plum Blossom. Faithful disciple of Master Hua. When he was a teenager, he was already translating for Master Hua. And he was a Christian. He knew almost no Buddhism. But again, Shifu saw in him someone who had Dharma affinities and said, you will be the one to come and teach. So the few Asian faces here are Jimmy Wong and Huang Dehui and a few others. So when they finally got to Waverly Place, the Shurangama Sutra study and meditation session, Master Hua had to teach the Americans everything about Buddhism. They were absolutely brand new. So how to boil rice. Shifu taught, you put the rice and you put your knuckle on the rice and then the water comes up to the first knuckle. And the old-fashioned way of measuring the amount of water and rice. Don't take it from me, mind you, if you don't quote me. It might have been the second knuckle, but he taught them how to bow. He taught them who was a Buddha. How do you say Amitabha? This is a wooden fish. This is what you do with it. Bong, 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 bong. Everything, every aspect. Master Hua himself, one person, painstakingly taught these Westerns. It was a big job. And many monks, when people would ask Sherpa, they say, well, Sherpa, how did you get so many Western disciples? And Sherpa would say, patience, only with patience. He said, if I hadn't had patience, I would have quit long ago. Americans are very difficult to teach. And people don't appreciate how much effort went in, how basic, how everything had to be done. The cooking, the chopping of vegetables, the locating of incense, and the sweeping of the floor. Sherpa did everything for mostly young American hippies who had affinities with Buddhism, but they were just like barely sprouts in the soil that had to be nurtured and watered and raised. So Sherpa said, okay, we're going to study the Shurangama Sutra. This is the most important sutra for getting the proper Dharma off on the right foot. The demons don't like this sutra, so we're going to do this first. And so he said, we're going to lecture the entire Shurangama Sutra. So he would lecture every day. Then he realized they had 90 days before the students had to go back to school in Seattle, Washington University. And so he said, we better lecture twice a day. So he had 2 sutra lectures. Translation was done by beginners. 自在, 自在 means self-at, freedom. 自在, yeah, well, we'll come back to that one. 功德, 功德 means goodness, right? Merit. What is de? De is like de, I don't know, Virtue. Oh, merit and, is it one thing or 2 things? Merit and virtue, or virtue? Is it goodness? Is it blessing? What? No, blessings is fu. Okay, well, if it's fu, de. Oh no, blessings and yeah, who knows how to translate? So translation was done just like that, seat of the pants, word by word. Sherpa would patiently wait for everybody to get it. And then he said, uh-oh, only 1 month left. We got out of Tenjan, we better add another sutra lecture. So by the end of the last month, he was lecturing 3 times a day, because it's proper to finish the sutra. You don't want to leave it unexplained, a piece of it. So they did, 90 days, over 10 scrolls of sutra, 3 lectures a day. The entire Shurangama Sutra was explained. And at the end, 5 American young people said, we're going to leave home, become bhikshus and bhikshunis. 3 men, 2 women, pretty much all of them from the Seattle area, introduced by Ron Epstein. They all took refuge, they got Dharma names, and then they went ahead, shaved their heads, went to Taiwan to receive the training and the complete precepts of bhikshus and bhikshunis. And all of this, of course, is documented, because this was a time of photography, not of videography. This is the early 70s. Video cameras were pretty much a rarity, unless you had like a home 8mm movie kind of thing. So this was a time of photographs. So we have photographs and know the story of how difficult it was for 5 Americans to go to Taiwan and still keep their practices. In Taiwan, during the Jieqi, when you train to take when you train to become bhikshus and bhikshunis, the meal times last 5 minutes. And the monks and nuns, our monks and nuns, ate once a day. All the others ate 3. So they really had a difficult time adjusting. Pretty bitter, but they did it. They came back to America, historically, the first 5 Americans to really leave home in the traditional way and become monks and nuns. So, meanwhile, everybody else, Madalena Tanmujie, she had learned in Hong Kong how to play the fa qi, the Dharma instruments, from the monk in Hong Kong one of the immigrant monks from China who had a reputation in China as one of the very, very best singers of Fanbai, Buddhist ceremonies. His name was Xu Lang Pa Shi. Xu Lang, he wasn't much to look at. He looked like kind of like a standard run-of-the-mill paragon of a monk, just everything was right. But when he sang, oh, his voice was so resonant, and he knew every ceremony. He could do a 10,000 Buddhas repentance single-handed. He could do a Yenko single-handed. He didn't need other monks. Of course, there were other monks, but he had the gift. And ceremonies was something that Master Hua never explored, because there was a principle behind it. He said, we are not going to ganjing chan in America. We're not going to sell sutras, sutra reciting and repentance bowing, because there were lots of unscrupulous monks in China who kind of forgot about their cultivation, but were willing to sell their knowledge of sutras to grieving families at funerals, or at weddings, or at dedications, or when disasters, etc. They would do it for money. Shiva said, I'm not going to do that. So he did not play the Dharma instruments. He said, go learn from Master Xu Lang. He does it right. So Shifu instructed Madalena to go as a lay woman, a young woman, to go learn from Xu Lang Pasha. When she came to America, and then in turn invited Shifu, she brought with her that knowledge. So we have pictures of everybody at Gold Mount at Buddhist Lecture Hall sitting at a table learning how to Da Fa Chi with Madalena. She, by the way, is very polite. She doesn't criticize our version of Chinese sutras, Chinese reciting, Chinese ceremony. She knows it's not quite right. That's it. So she says, sooner we get it into English forms, the better. Because you can't expect Americans to sing Chinese music, right? Just the way the Chinese didn't sing Indian music. Okay, we have a dramatic photo. This is we had an exhibit for the Master Hua's centennial. Is it centennial, right? Master Hua's anniversary, 2018, 100 years after his birth. We had a centennial celebration at the San Francisco Public Library. This was our theme photo. Now, I'd like people to look. How many Asian faces are in this photo? One? Correct. One Asian face. Everyone else is a Caucasian. This is Shifu Sangha after the second ordination. So there was a first ordination with 5. The second ordination had 1, Heng Su, Heng Bai, Heng Guan, Heng Ju, Heng You. So the second ordination had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's see. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So 7. Second one was 7. Number 3 was Heng Xian. I was number 4. The 4th group, of which there were 5 in my group. So all of these Americans drew near, got close, were able to let go of plans for wealth, for love that lasts, for fame and glory. And one by one, they entered their affinities with the Dharma. Those years were remarkable. We're talking 1970, 1971, and 72. Something really important happened in 1970, which was Buddhist Lecture Hall moved to the Mission District, to 15th Street, and became Jingshansi, Gold Mountain Monastery. And there it is. That's my photo, by the way, happy to say. So Gold Mountain Monastery was a converted mattress factory, an old 1930s building, red brick, in San Francisco on 15th and Valencia. The neighborhood was one of San Francisco's oldest. It is the oldest. The Mission District is the Hispanic ghetto. It's where San Francisco began, where the mission was, where the church, Hispanic church. And to say the Chinese word for this neighborhood is fuza, really complicated. I was in the monastery 2 different nights when right outside the door, people were murdered by gunshots. One of them was a Black Panther in his car. And I remember the night that I was translating texts and I heard footsteps running down Albion Street, which was right next to the, no, bang, bang, bang. And it's like right outside the door, just outside, the guy bleeding outside. Right across the street was the Projects, which was the lowest income housing in the city. And every kind of crime was going on there. I'm sure who would tell us what was happening there. It was a complicated neighborhood. By day, we were safe. We never had any issues. But the building itself was just remarkable because it was, when we got there, it was absolutely more a factory than it was anything else. We had to clean it all out. We had to paint it and make it livable, actually build the floors up, put residence units in the 3rd floor for the monks, 2nd floor for the nuns, 1st floor for the Buddha hall, and build a staircase so we could get up. And the staircase was so steep, going right up. After we made it livable, the city decided that it needed to be earthquake safe. So in San Francisco, the city that waits to die with earthquake difficulties, there were contracting firms that would tie together the walls of the old red brick building. So we had to do it. And so Master Hua said, we'll do it ourselves. We'll be inspected at the end. Just give us the standards and we'll build the standard. So he told disciples to go out and find young workers. In Australia, they'd be called tradies, who could come in and do the work. And with that call for labor, we got all these young men and families who are still disciples to this day. Michael Owen, the Mason, Bob Olson, all these people, John Scroggs, all these people came in who were willing to be electricians and brick masons. I learned how to lay brick and how to mix mortar. We all pitched in to rebuild Gold Mountain Monastery, make it a place for the 3 jewels to live. So that was where most of the sutras, except the Shurangama, were explained. Shifu, when he moved in, made 3 large yellow Chinese characters on the windows, Hua Yan Hui, Avatamsaka Assembly, and he began to explain Hua Yan Jing, the Avatamsaka. It took 9 years. 9 years for him to finish. We built all the furniture out of scrap wood. Are you patiently waiting to ask more questions?
It's okay.
Stop me before I preach again, right? So one of Shifu's principles was we want to live as close as we can to the Buddha's ideal of mendicant monks. That is to say, we live on alms. We thrive on what people are happy to offer. We don't use money for food. So back in the 70s, I took refuge in 1973. I walked into Gold Mountain in 1972. I became a disciple, took refuge in 73, and moved in to the monastery to live about 9 months later, 74, and then shaved my head in 74. Was a novice for 2 years and then took the full precepts in 76. So from 73, when I took refuge, we started to do dumpster diving for food. All of the, at that point in San Francisco, the grocery stores were still pretty kaifeng, and when food spoiled, they would just put it in crates out back, and first come, first served. So we would scope, we had a regular route of all the Safeways and all the Albertson markets. We would find cartons of melons, cartons of milk, day old, cartons of bread that was day old, vegetables that had a slight brown spot, you know. All the food we ate all those years, we got from pulling it out of dumpsters. And it was great. Shifu's principle was, America wastes too much food. We don't cherish our blessings. So you can eat very well for nothing. We got acquainted with all the other spiritual groups in San Francisco because they too were competing for the dumpster diving. We would jump in a dumpster and find that the Wind Horse Commune was already there, you know. Here was the Zen Center. So one day, we took turns as cooks, and there was not only grocery stores in San Francisco, but there were also other kinds of food factories. Our cook at one point was Bob Olson, who was notorious for his sweet tooth. Bob Olson was really into sugar and things. So there was a candy factory in San Francisco called Big Chunk. And Big Chunk was, if you buy candy bars, it wasn't a Mars bar or a Snickers or a Three Musketeers. It was a big chunk of chocolate with nuts in it. Really big. It was a double the size. And one day, dumpster diving, Gofa came back and his eyes were so big, and he was carrying 10 pounds of chocolate from the Big Chunk factory. He says, yeah, they were dumping it out. It wasn't right. Here it is. You know. So Shifu came down and said, oh, Gofa, so you found something very sweet. Good. He said, yeah. He said, make sure you use it all, Gofa. And he was the cook. So we had rice with chocolate. We had steamed vegetables with chocolate, with Big Chunk. For a week or 10 days, every dish had melted chocolate in it because Shifu told Gofa to use it all. By the end of that time, we said, Olson, the next time you bring back chocolate, you're eating it all yourself. Shifu taught people in wonderful ways. So, Gold Mountain. The thing about Gold Mountain was cold. Not only did Shifu not use money for food, he did not use money for heat. Gold Mountain was known as the Xuegui. It was the icebox. And you know how people don't understand San Francisco, Northern California, is a cold place in the winter because of the fog, because of its proximity to the ocean. It's on a peninsula right out there in the Pacific Ocean. And so remember Mark Twain, famous American author? He said, oh, the coldest winter I ever spent was July in San Francisco. Now, Australians don't get the joke because July is winter, you know, but in America, July is the heat of the summer. Mark Twain said the coldest winter ever was summer in San Francisco. You shiver there. In Gold Mountain, in this cavernous box of bricks, it was cold. And Shifu, being from Manchuria, just said, okay, put on some more clothes. If you meditate really well, you'll be warm. Don't worry. So that was how Gold Mountain went. And the one of the most remarkable aspects of Gold Mountain Monastery was the schedule. And every morning, 3:30, Can I do 5 more minutes of sleep? And then that's at 3:30. And if they don't see you at 5 of, knock, 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 knock. It's all cooked. Get downstairs. So no hiding. After it's all cooked, you have 20 minutes when you can get a hot drink, and then it's time to meditate. 2 hours of sitting. You don't skip. 2 hours of meditation. Every monk, every day, every nun, every day. No escape. And so the morning began with an hour of Zhaoke, 2 hours of sitting. And then there was work time. And no breakfast, right? But you could drink tea or coffee, whatever coffee wasn't a thing the way it was then. It was mostly tea, or if you had some hot chocolate, if Goffa was around, or soy milk or something. So that was how we began. And then at 10:30, Shanggong every day, and the meal offering, and then 1 Ke evening ceremony at 6:30, and then at 7:30 to 9 o'clock, every single day, Master Hua would 讲经说法, speak Dharma. And I tell you, Gold Mountain Monastery filled up with an unusual light, a rare light in the evening, which was the light of the 3 jewels, gods, the dragons, the Eightfold Pantheon, coming to listen to Shifu explain the sutras, right? It was just uncanny how American young people who otherwise would be out getting jobs, getting their degrees, traveling, were eating 1 meal a day of dumpster dive vegetables and rice, an occasional loaf of bread, and fruit. And at night, we're not suffering from hunger and not complaining that we were being deprived. Voluntarily following our teacher and his vows to follow the Buddha's instructions and eat 1 meal a day of food that was offered, we didn't buy. We didn't feel hungry. You didn't feel hungry. You felt instead, 禅悦味师, 法喜充满. Take the food of dhyana as your nourishment, filled with the joy of Dharma. So it was amazing. I attribute it to listening to Master Hua explain sutra. It was, you just didn't feel any lack. Somehow you were full. It was just remarkable, just amazing. And as our lecture series last week, we spent one evening talking about Master Hua as shaman, meaning the Mizong, the esoteric side of that practice, mantrayana. There was something else going on that it's easy to kind of nod your head and go, yeah, yeah, yeah. San Francisco was predicted to have an earthquake. And that prediction was widespread. The astrologers, the fortune tellers, the soothsayers, the seismologists at UC Berkeley, who study it scientifically, all said multiple faults. The San Andreas fault is the one that on the west side, but the Hayward fault is on the east bay, the east side, coming from Hayward right up through Berkeley. Both of those are active faults, and they regularly erupt at major, like 6-point, 7-point eruptions, like clockwork, every 130 years. And everybody said it's going to happen. Shifu said, as long as I'm in San Francisco, I won't permit the earth to quake. It's not that it can't quake, I just won't let it, he said. And there's a book by a guy named Alan Vaughan, who is a journalist and a skillful writer, called Patterns of Prophecy. Patterns of Prophecy. That book is available on Zoom, on Amazon. And Alan Vaughan came to Gold Mountain, and in his journalism went to investigate. He had heard that there was a Buddhist abbot in the Mission District who made a claim that he was not going to let the earthquake. he came to investigate. I translated for him. He, in the pages of Patterns of Prophecy, I have a copy of it back at Berkeley. He says, well, he tells the story of Master Hua and Buddhist monks in general who could do such things. He said, now, I, as a journalist, cannot confirm the truth of Master Hua's prophecy, but I can guarantee you there are hundreds of thousands of San Franciscos who are glad that he made the claim, he said. Mayor Willie Brown, famous, iconic mayor of San Francisco, knew about Shifu's prophecy and said, we hope you'll stay around a little longer, he said. Because why? Knock on wood, no earthquake. Except in 1989, when Master Hua went to Taiwan, and he was in Hualien at Dongjingsi, when somebody came running up the stairs and said, Shifu, Jiujinshan Da Dijun. San Francisco had a big earthquake. Shifu went, oh, he says, I forgot. He said, as soon as I left San Francisco, Mo Wang jiu xia shou le. The demon king dropped his fist on San Francisco. He flew back. Luckily, there was smaller loss of life, but still, it's the Loma Prieta earthquake. By the way, about 30 miles from Redwood, Bihar, the epicenter. So Loma Prieta is down near this, further south. So that's some of the aspects of San Francisco. That's magical. Nobody knows quite how Shifu does that. But he said, he gave clues. He said, well, as long as I'm explaining the sutras, as long as we are turning the Dharma wheel, he said, the demons, the Dharma protectors don't want our Fa Hui to fall into the Pacific Ocean. He said, so they're protecting. And he also, when he got to Gold Mountain Monastery, he published Vajrabodhi Si. Vajrabodhi Si is a magazine of the Right Dharma in America. And on the cover of Vajrabodhi Si, he published the 42 hands and eyes, starting with the as you will, Rui Zhu hand, and all the way through the other 42 hands. And he published, he wrote verses for them, and verses of the Shurangama mantra. And he said, when we publish these on the magazine that we distribute, the demon kings are Lao Shi, they hide away. He said, as long as this is here, they can't come fully out. So, make of that what you will. Gold Mountain Monastery also produced 2 American monks who did a 3 steps, 1 bow pilgrimage from San Francisco to Marble Mount, Washington. 1,000 miles, bowing once every 3 steps. Bhikshu Hengju was the one who made the vow. Bhikshu Hengyo vowed to accompany him, and they succeeded. They got there in 9 months, and when they arrived, we had a world peace gathering. That was what it was called at Seward Park Amphitheater in Seattle, and I was a layman. And the monk who was the Dharma protector was my college roommate, Bhikshu Hengyo. And I was so impressed with what they had done. And I was one of the Dharma protectors who went up to Seward Park Amphitheater to celebrate their arrival. And I wrote a song for them. I thought it was a worthy event. Anybody who wants to know about the details, there's a book available called 3 Steps, 1 Bow, available on Amazon. So the song goes, 2 pilgrims in the modern age, like heroes of the past, who suffered for the sake of other men, women. They bowed 1,100 miles and walked the middle way to show the world the Dharma lives again. The chorus goes, praise the Bodhisattvas who left their homes to bow, from the Golden Gate to Marble Mount on the power of their vows. Be glad that in the modern age, like holy men of old, they're climbing up a mountain made of gold. They're climbing up a mountain made of gold. A pair of Buddhist bhikshus on a search for world peace. Their message touched the hearts of many men. Ignorance and greed and all hostility will cease. In the West, the Buddha Dharma lives again, in the chorus. They bowed to save the living and they bowed to save the world. They patiently endured the freezing rain. They bowed and praised a holy name until their sound was heard. In the West, the true Dharma lives again. Have you, Jinchuan, you know this song? Have you heard it before? Okay. Disciples of the patriarch, Dhyana Master Hua, can bring about what others cannot do. Cross the sea of suffering, subdue your crazy mind. In the West, the Buddha Dharma calls to you. Two pilgrims in the modern age, like heroes of the past, who suffered for the sake of other men. They bowed 1,100 miles, walked the middle way, to show the world the Dharma lives again. Praise the Bodhisattvas who left their homes to bow, from the Golden Gate to Marble Mount on the power of their vows. Be glad that in the modern age, like holy men of old, they're climbing up a mountain made of gold. They're climbing up a mountain made of gold. A pair of Buddhist bhikshus on a search for world peace. Their message touched the hearts of many men. Ignorance and greed and all hostility will cease. In the West, the Buddha Dharma lives again. So praise the Bodhisattvas who left their homes to bow, from the Golden Gate to Marble Mount on the power of their vows. Be glad that in the modern age, like holy men of old, they're climbing up the mountain made of gold. They're climbing up a mountain made of gold. They bowed to save the living. They bowed to save the world. They patiently endured the freezing rain. They bowed and praised a holy name until their sound was heard. In the West, the Dharma lives again. So praise the Bodhisattvas who left their homes to bow, from the Golden Gate to Marble Mount on the power of their vows. Be glad that in the modern age, like holy men of old, they're climbing up a mountain made of gold. They're climbing up a mountain made of gold. Disciples of the patriarch, Dhyana Master Hua, can bring about what others cannot do. Cross the sea of suffering, subdue your crazy mind. In the West, the Buddha Dharma calls to you. So praise the Bodhisattvas who left their homes to bow, from the Golden Gate to Marble Mount on the power of their vows. Be glad that in the modern age, like holy men of old, they're climbing up a mountain made of gold. They're climbing up a mountain made of gold. And I'm sure even a dozen people heard that the first time in the Seward Park Campus Theater, maybe even 24. And this is probably like the third time I've ever sung that song. So it was remarkable, and it was historic, and nothing like that had ever happened in America. And so along the route, let's see here, some things happened that are worthy of retelling. And gosh, I only have 8 minutes.
We can continue tomorrow as well.
Okay, so I'll tell this one story. So Bhikshu Hangju also had a sweet tooth. He and Gofa, the two of them, had some famous escapades about getting milkshakes and getting jelly donuts and getting all kinds of goods, anything that was sweet and tasty. So when Hangju made it back to Gold Mountain at the end of his pilgrimage, he somehow somebody had offered things that were called handy pies. Anybody right in Australia, are there handy pies? It's kind of like a it's a dough crust, but inside is like jelly or jam, strawberry or raspberry, and you buy it in a it's individually wrapped. It's about this big, kind of like a sandwich, although it's entirely sweet. You know, it's called a handy pie. It's like a pie, only you can stuck it in your backpack, sort of thing. So somebody had made an offering of these to Gold Mountain in honor of Hangju's successful pilgrimage, and he saw them, and he took 3 and ate 1, and then put 2 in his pocket. And of course, we stopped eating at noon, or after the meal, and Hangju put those 2 in his pocket, and then had to wait for a lecture, and you know, and he was very aware that he was bowing to the Buddha with 2 of these handy pies in his pocket, and one was blueberry, and the other I think was cherry. And so he said, "Wow, this is really, I'm really ashamed of myself. I shouldn't have so much greed. This is just desire thoughts, you know." And so, but he gave 1 away, but he still had the blueberry pie in his pocket. And so he was thinking during meditation in the evening, and there was 1 more hour of meditation in the evening every day before one could. And so he was thinking about it and thought, well, you know, he said, you can't waste it. Somebody made an offering, and if I don't eat it, they won't get their blessings. So I should probably eat it just to make sure that they get their blessings. That's probably a good principle. I thought, no, that's just greed. So he was fighting in his mind about this pie that he had put into his pocket of his robe. So he thought, okay, the only thing I can do is just eat it. Otherwise, I'll have too many false thoughts. So what did he do? He waited until everybody was asleep, and it was now 11 p.m. Everybody was supposed to be in bed and asleep by 10 or 10:30 at most. So he waited, and he couldn't hear another sound in the monastery. So it was now 11 o'clock, pitch black outside. He quietly lifted the wooden window of the 3rd floor bathroom and climbed out on the fire escape and made his way up to the roof of Gold Mountain and looked around, very quiet. The pigeons are asleep. The planes are just, you see the lights of the jetliners going. You could hear the foghorns from the other side of San Francisco. Foghorns. So he climbs up on the roof and starts walking in a circle. He pulls out the blueberry handy pie, and he opens it up and he eats it, and he's thinking, this is probably as close to nirvana as I'm ever going to get. And he said, this is so good, you know. And then he hears something, and he looks around the brick chimney, and here, climbing up onto the roof, he sees a yellow knit skull cap, and he sees an elderly Chinese gentleman and yellow robes, Master Hua, is climbing on the roof. And so Hangju is like, and he starts walking in this direction to get as far away from Shifu as he can, and Shifu starts walking in the other direction, and they bump into each other. Master Hua goes, 你觉得怎么样啊? How do you feel? He said. Hongju is like turning red and white and blue and red and white and blue. He's caught, absolutely busted. And so Hongju said, I never said I was perfect, Shifu. And he just bows to him. What is Shifu doing on the roof of Gold Mountain at 11 p.m.? You know, it's just, he obviously has all of us on his radar all the time. So the next day was the big celebration of Three Steps, One Bow, successfully arriving in San Francisco. And this is my photograph of Master Hua, Bhikshu Hui Sung, Shifu's Dharma buddy, Bhikshu Heng Yo, who was totally not involved in this scheme, and here's Heng Ju. And what is Shifu doing? Shifu's offering him a berry pie. Somebody that day had made an offering of not a handy pie, something you buy over the counter at the drugstore, but an actual berry pie this big. And Shifu gives him the biggest piece. Here you go, he says, enjoy it. And Hongju is like, so Gold Mountain Monastery was the scene for all of these wonderful stories of what's involved when young people, men and women, try to do what's called the great reversal, turning around the outflows, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and most of all the mind, and transforming ourselves with the Dharma. It is not an easy process. It's the work of a great hero, historically, and it produces Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, and sages. So that's a little bit about the early days of Gold Mountain Monastery. There's much more to come.
Great.
Everybody knows what dedication of merit involves. It's interactive. You have to make a wish to make it work. The music is just a vehicle. The actual work is done in the mind. And this is absolutely Samantabhadra, Pushen Pusa's crowning practice. This is how, so think of it this way. A bodhisattva says, Shang Cheng Fo Dao, I'm going to become a Buddha. I'm going to realize my ultimate potential. But to do that, I have to Xiahua Zhongsheng, I have to take living beings across. How do you take living beings across? Especially in days like this when we're just mostly connected to our screens. It's even harder. But what you need if you're going to take living beings across is some connection with living beings. Otherwise, how would you possibly take them across, right? So how do you make connections with living beings? You say, all the merit and virtue that I have cultivated by a day of practice here at Gold Coast Dharma Realm, wherever you might be, I dedicate that merit. The bowing, and the chanting, and the reciting, and the memorizing, and the service, and the administration, and the listening to Dharma, and giving my time to supporting the way place. All of that gongda, all that merit and virtue I share with living beings with the wish that, and you fill in the wish. That's how you get affinities with living beings. It's real. It's really real. You send out this broadcast from your heart with a single-minded focus, living beings pick it up. We're all connected on our inner radar, and if you're sending out the goodness, giving it away, they pick it up. In the future, they go, oh, I have a good feeling about that. Oh, why? It looks somehow familiar. Could you give me some advice? Right? Because you've already connected with them as a gift of Dharma, invisibly and really truly. okay? That's what we're doing. So don't waste a chance, don't waste a moment not transferring merit. Otherwise, you'll be a lonely arhat. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with love, share the fruits of peace, with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to may kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and may this boundless light dispel the darkness of an endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise.
Thank you for your participation and attention, and see you tomorrow. Same time.